This fatal mistake could cost you your marriage. How do I know? Because it's the same mistake that every single one of my coaching clients were making. Stick with me and I'll show you how my clients see more progress in the weeks after fixing this mistake than they saw in the months or years prior. To help you to be able to identify this mistake for yourself, I want to share with you an analogy that can be very helpful. Imagine your relationship is like a hot air balloon. And go back to the start when things felt pretty good. There was just nothing but potential. There was so much for you all to explore together, to learn together, to grow together, to love together. Now, if you're in a difficult season of your relationship today, something began to change. And it probably happened gradually. But at some point, maybe your wife turns to you and finally admits that things aren't as good as you thought they were. In this analogy, it's like the balloon wasn't soaring quite as high as you thought, and it's actually pretty close to the ground or maybe even grounded. And perhaps she was able to tell you some of the reasons why she felt that way. Maybe there were some things that you both were doing that was hurting the relationship. Or if she's been particularly hurt, maybe she focused just on you and some of the things you were doing that was keeping the relationship grounded. And I know that must have been hard to hear. She might have talked about your communication style, or especially around conflict, or how you handled your emotions. Or maybe it was that you couldn't handle her emotions, or she didn't feel very emotionally supported. Maybe it was the state you came home from in work, where she just felt like she didn't really want to spend time with you when you're like that. Or perhaps she needed more support around the house. Now, especially if she says something like, I love you, but I'm just no longer in love with you. Or she says she needs space. If you're like me, or most men I know, we go into fix-it mode. And you think about every single thing that she said or anything that you could possibly fix, and you go after every single one of them. Like, okay, I need to become a much better communicator. You're like buying courses online to be able to communicate better. You're reading books. You're looking at every single YouTube video for advice that you can get. You decide, you know what, I need to bring the attraction back. So let me hit the gym and get in the best shape of my life. And I'm going to take over all the chores on the house. And we try to fix everything. And that leads to one of the biggest mistakes I see men making when they're trying to repair and revive their relationships. They try to do everything all at once. And the more that they seem to do, the less it seems to land with her. The less it seems to touch our partners and convince them to see things differently or recommit to the relationship. In fact, you might find she starts to resist even more. And that's because this mistake has some inherent problems with it. It can be very ineffective because you're spreading yourself so thin, you aren't able to actually master any of those areas. And you might say to me, Ro, I'm doing everything. Everything. Yes, but how well are you doing each of those things? And sometimes you might be doing all of these things, but have you actually addressed the one thing that is the most crucial to her? It can also be very hard to be consistent. When you're spinning that many plates, when things get difficult, it can be really easy to miss one. And the challenge with the season is when you make a mistake, it's the one thing that she'll notice the most. And she might have even said something to you like, see, I knew you hadn't really changed. And it can feel like you've taken 10 steps back. And that's because it can be unconvincing. She's watching you change so much, maybe even trying to change yourself. And she says, why now? Why are you trying to change all of this? It's obvious that you're just trying to do this to get me back. And I know that can be very demotivating, especially if she says something like, it's too little, too late. And with all the effort that you've been making, that can really drain you. And it's hard to have a really positive attitude. Even if you're trying to make up for the years when you maybe haven't been the best partner that you wanted to be, it's hard not to slip into blame. Where you say, look at me, I'm doing everything I possibly can, and she stopped making all effort. The fault is with her now. But maybe you're going about this the wrong way. And that's why I say it's one of the biggest mistakes. Perhaps there's a better approach. I learned this from my friend and mentor, Flip. See, let's go back to the balloon. What Flip was able to show me was that at any given moment with this balloon and all these ropes that are holding it down, the only one that actually matters is the shortest rope. You might spend a lifetime cutting all the other ropes, but if you never address the shortest rope, in this case, the rope that most hurts your relationships, the critical constraint, as Flip would say, unless you address that one, your balloon is going nowhere. So let me ask you, do you know the one thing that is hurting your relationship the most right now? And if not, why not? Because everything shifts when you identify the one thing that is holding your relationship back and focus all your efforts there. When you address that shortest constraint, the balloon can then soar to the next level. And I would strongly encourage you to create a growth plan that is centered around addressing this one area. Now, why does this work so well? Because it's effective. When you focus on one area, you can get so much more traction. You can create deep change, the kind of change that can't be faked. And because you're focusing on the most important area, the results are so much more meaningful. You're also able to be more consistent because it's so much more sustainable when you're directing your energy into just one area. And it's more likely to stay in place even when things get difficult. It can also feel so much more credible to our partners because we're not scrambling, trying to change everything about who we are. It's authentic and genuine and aligned. And it can be deeply motivating because when you focus, you see changes and results so much faster, and she will notice. And you will too. And that can really uplift and energize you. And as a bonus, should you make a mistake in this area, it's not so overwhelming because it's not the one of many that are piling on. You can see it for what it is, an opportunity to grow. And so it just becomes feedback for how you can get better in that area. A recent example is a client that I'm working with who was doing so much for his relationship, but it wasn't effective and he wasn't seeing any traction. In fact, his wife was pushing away. And when we started working together, we really took the time to identify what is that one thing that is costing his relationship the most. In his case, it turned out that he was overthinking. For every situation he was in, he would constantly try to analyze and worry about what was the best thing to do. And in many cases, he would hesitate or he would try to do something that really wasn't him. And as a result, it was very disconnecting and his wife was shutting down and pushing away. Now, when he decided to focus exclusively on this one area and was able to use the skills and practices and tools that we developed together, he was so much more present in his relationship. He was less in his head, less worried, more relaxed. As a result, his partner was so much more relaxed, and they both are less triggered, and they've been working so much better together as a team. Now, what can you do to have that one focus in your efforts to save your relationship? Well, the first step is to identify what is hurting your relationship the most right now. And I know that it can be hard to self-reflect accurately enough to have the confidence that you've identified the most critical thing. And so I'm going to give you a tip that my mentor Flip gave me. Don't try to do it yourself. Ask for feedback. Now, a little caveat here. The obvious person to ask is your partner. However, think about the season you're in. If you're in an extremely difficult season, I would not recommend asking her. It could be very triggering and she might resist even more. There are plenty of other people in your life who know you well enough and care about you to give you true and honest feedback. So ask someone who's a truth teller, but also someone you know that cares about you deeply. What is the one thing that I do that hurts my relationships? And the next step is to think of a small daily action that you could do to grow and improve in this area. And I know you'll be tempted, since you're focusing, to do a lot quickly, but less is more, and little and often will always beat big and once. When you put a small action in place and can be consistent with it, it'll motivate you to take on more. Now, the last thing is to stay focused. You don't have to master this area perfectly, but please don't move on to the next thing until you feel that this is no longer hurting your relationship. I know it's hard to resist fixing everything, but remember, it is one of the biggest mistakes and it can undermine all of your efforts and can cost you your marriage. I also know it can be draining and demotivating when you feel like you're alone in trying to save your marriage. So if you would like a simple mindset shift, that can help you to maintain your focus, keep you energized and motivated through the process, then watch this video next. And of course, like and subscribe for more. Ciao.